Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good, from science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I am Rafe, and you know the deal. It's a great show this week because that's what we try to do here at the Buff. Remember, you guys are great listeners, and you have made us a global top 10% podcast. For that, we are eternally grateful. You can always reach us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. Remember to share the love, share the buff. Give us a 5-star review, hit subscribe or like or smiley stars, whatever you got out there on your podcast app or podcast machine or your podcast phonograph, whatever it is that makes our life better is something that will make your life better. Remember to tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. And somewhere hidden in the show notes is a little link where you can buy me a coffee, buy me a microphone, you can buy me a vacation. Any of those things would be great. Or you can just send some love our way. That'd be great. A couple weeks ago, episode 236, we talked about suffering, death, sin, falling rocks, and those kinds of things. And on my mind lately has been a lot of how do I say it? There's a lot of suffering has been on my mind for a number of reasons, and I kept thinking about this idea of suffering and where it comes from and what it is and what it isn't and why it appears. And people ask this a lot. Well, why is there suffering? And where does it come from? And maybe we just shouldn't have suffering. Maybe things would be better if we didn't have suffering. So I want to look into that today and consider four different four different sources of where your suffering may be coming from. And or why it may be coming. And we're going to talk about all those and see if we can figure out what those things mean. So remember, most of the suffering we have is emotional. There's oftentimes people who are sick have physical suffering, but a lot of us have emotional suffering. Things hurt. Situations hurt. Interactions with people hurt. Things that happen in your life hurt, and a lot of times they don't hurt physically. I mean, sometimes they do. Sometimes you get beat up. Sometimes you have a disease. You can have a cancer, or you can have some sort of myalgia, or you can have all sorts of problems. And I'm not here to say that those are not real. They are very real. Both the real ones, the physical ones, and the emotional ones are very real, because you feel them, and feelings are real things. They may be difficult to measure. They may not show up on a CT scan, but feelings are real. So whether your suffering is a physical thing or whether it's an emotional thing, I'm gonna look at where these sufferings come from, and I asked myself, and I've been doing a lot of walking the last couple of days, thinking about a lot of different things, and I came to the question. What is causing my suffering? Is it because am I being punished? Is a question. Am I being tempted? Is a question. Am I being tested? Is this a training opportunity for me to get better? Is that what the suffering is, or is it just a consequence of something? If I drop a rock on my foot. The rock follows its nature and goes down and hits my foot and causes some pain, and there's some suffering. Now, and there's all sorts of reasons you can talk about that, but the rock falls. That's what the rock does. And if you put your foot there where the rock is coming down, you will suffer that. And that we can talk about why you may or may not have put your foot there and the rock there and dropped the rock, or who dropped the rock on your foot. But in general, the rock falling on you is it's a consequence of the state of the world that we are in. All right. Sometimes it's what do they call it? Let's see. We'll keep it PG-13 here. We'll call it fool around and find out. or sometimes it's, you should know better, so don't do those things. But let's look at all these in order. We're going to look at punishment, temptation, testing or training opportunity, and then consequence. And we're going to try to get those in order, although they tend to overlap and drop on top of each other. I want to think first about punishment. And I think a lot of us think that way because we see books like Crime and Punishment. We talk about our justice system focuses a lot on making sure the punishment fits the crime. At least that's one of the catchphrases. We can talk about like karma. Did you deserve it? Did you deserve the bad thing you got? In that case, it's kind of a punishment. Is it a vengeance? I mean, is God out to get you and you did something wrong, so you're going to get smote like I don't know, like something, whatever that gets smote, like a bug, or you can get stomped. So we have this idea that you did wrong, and now you will be punished, and the idea that that will somehow make it even. And that's the question then: is are you suffering because of something you did wrong? That's the question I'm trying to get around. And so I'm looking at whatever suffering I'm going through, whatever suffering you may go through. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? And this is punishment for that. And it's a difficult thing to separate what I'll call human punishment from the concept of divine punishment. Now, human punishment comes from this thing like, I don't know, maybe you steal a pack of gum at the store and they throw you in jail and they make you, I don't know, pick up trash along the road or something. I mean, there's a punishment there from the crime, and human punishment may or may not be justice because it may or may not be just. So if you have a bad judge may not punish you properly, and a good judge may punish you properly or may not. It's a difficult thing to figure out exactly how the punishment fits the crime. You could get a bad sentence from a bad judge because you didn't do your due diligence and you voted for a bad judge. So then in that sense, you kind of are being punished for doing poor research in electing your judges. So there's, you have responsibility and culpability there, but in that kind of case, if you suffer, there's a kind of justice in there. You get what you got. Now remember, justice is this concept that you get what you deserve. A system is just if you get what you deserve, and that's a really difficult thing. It's nebulous, right? It's hard to say where the accounting goes. If you buy a book for $1 and you give the guy the $1 and he gives you the book, then that's a just transaction because you both got what the agreed upon price. If you agree to buy the book for $1, he gives you the book, you give him the $1, but you open the book and it's blank on the inside. Well, then that's unjust. You did not get what you deserve. So somebody has to come and make recompense there. We have to make it right. We have to make it align. So this concept, I hear this phrase a lot. I heard somebody in conversation the other day say, well, to each his own. And it was actually, I was ordering something at a restaurant and I think I wanted jelly on my toast or honey or something. And the waitress lady said something like, well, to each his own. And I thought about that statement. I think we've talked about this a little bit a long time ago on the show, is that a lot of times people use that phraseology, to each his own, to mean that different people have different preferences. Like you say tomato, I say tomato, right? You want jelly and I want honey, and well, to each his own. And they use it more of a statement about preferences. But the source of that statement actually is one about justice. The idea that you will get yours in the long run. Well, what do they say? Truth will out. Justice will out. I guess you could say something like that. The idea to each his own means that whatever you do will come back to you in justice form. And it may not be in this life. We trust that in the end there will be justice, but it's a difficult thing here in this life. And we have situations where good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people, and that does not feel just. And that's a problem. We don't like that. Having good justice means that you get both the good and the bad of what you deserve. But mostly, I'm thinking that punishment is not necessarily justice. It may or may not be justice. But the idea that your suffering is a punishment. It is a way to balance the scales back from an area that you made. I think, in generally, that's not true. I'm going to go out and I'm going to say that punishment is suffering is not punishment, right? Suffering oftentimes is a consequence of bad decisions, right? That's certain. That's oftentimes it is, not all the time, but oftentimes it is. What did we say earlier? You fool around and you find out. You just do something silly. You hold a rock over your head and you let it go, and it hits you on the head, and now you have a headache, and that suffering is a consequence of a bad decision. Right? Now you may be caught off guard. You may not have known that the rock would fall, and in that case, it's an unfortunate bad decision, but it's still a bad decision. It's just a consequence, right? It's just something that happens. It would have been nice to know better, but that kind of thing just happens. And some you get suffering from you eat too much. You eat too much chicken pot pie and you feel bad, or that's a simple cause and effect kind of thing. That's a consequence. You're not being punished for eating too much chicken pot pie. It just, your tummy feels bad if you do too much of that. Too much ice cream will do the same thing. You stay up too late doing whatever you're doing, and you feel tired the next day. That's not a punishment for staying up too late. It's just a consequence of doing that. You know what's going to happen. You don't study for your test and you get a bad grade. You're not being punished for not studying. It's just a consequence of what you do. So there's a lot of places where you suffer something, and it's a consequence of a decision you made earlier. And sometimes it's you might think, well, the suffering, I'll take the suffering because I wanted the good that came out of it. Maybe I wanted to stay up late studying, and I will feel tired the next day, and that's a little bit of suffering. But it is that suffering is balanced out by the good grade I got, and that makes me feel good. So I'm willing to take the suffering. But the suffering comes as a consequence of a thing you do. Okay. Now, there's also suffering, that's just simple cause and effect. There are those things I mentioned. But there's also things that you can, like, if you violate wise practices, if you do something stupid, then you can get suffering, but it's not really punishment either. If you drink and drive and you wrap your car around a tree, that's not punishment. That's just unwise behavior, and that's a consequence. And that's why we tell you, do not drink and drive, right? You start taking drugs and you get addicted, or you get, or you run out of money, or you do something silly, then, that was a bad decision you made. And those outcomes of, going to prison or to have to do community service, that's not punishment. That's a consequence of doing the unwise thing that you did. If you take up gambling, right, or you take risky investments, sort of thing, it's not punishment when you lose your money. It is a consequence of a bad decision. So so we're moving from simple things like eating too much pot pie to gambling and making bad investments or drinking and driving. And there are bigger things too. There are God's laws, right? There are laws of ethics and morals that can result in long-term suffering. These laws, I'll call them the 10 Commandments, but there are lots of laws. If you look through the Bible, you will see lots of things that you should and should not do. And these are not, these laws, there are laws of nature that you should not try to violate because it's going to be a problem. And God's laws are like that, but they live in an ethical realm, not in a physics realm. And these laws are for you. They are not there to keep God satiated. They're not there to protect God's rights or anything like that. They are there because if you violate them, bad things will happen to you. Suffering will come to you if you covet, if you steal, if you kill, if you dishonor, right? All of those things are things that violate those fundamental tenets, and suffering will come out of them, not as punishment, but as a consequence of those things. The reason you're told not to covet is because that will cause problems for you. The reason you're told not to steal is it will cause problems for you. That, it is not, if you take somebody else's property, that's not your property. And it's wrong to take their property because it violates their rights, right? But it also is bad for you because now you've said that it's okay to take somebody's stuff and people can take your stuff and you have no recompense. Okay. So these are laws that are in place to keep you from suffering, to not have bad things happen to you. These are not, the outcomes of these are not punishments. All right. There is not divine punishment. I don't think these are consequences. And, oftentimes there are simple consequences to these things that you do that they're not necessarily your fault. They're just the state of the world. You drop the rock, it's going to land in your foot. I mean, it's not your fault that happens. So you don't have any culpability in that. It's unwise to do, but that can happen. It can cause suffering. So I think the first thing, I don't think suffering is punishment. I don't see it that way. I can't get my head around the idea that suffering is a punishment. The suffering I'm going through is not a consequence of something I did wrong, right? I mean, I'm sorry. It's not a punishment for something I did wrong. It may be a consequence of what I did wrong, but it's not there. It's not a punishment. It's not a divine punishment. Okay, so I think suffering can come from these simple consequences, like I said, or from temptation, or from testing, but I don't think it comes from the concept of punishment. Okay, so simple consequences are things like you drop the rock and it lands on your foot, or you do something silly like you go gambling and then you lose your money. Those are both sufferings, and those are consequences of bad decisions. But you're not necessarily being tempted by that. Okay, it is possible to be tempted. Okay, and whether or not the suffering you are in is a temptation, or whether it's a test or a training opportunity, that whichever one it is, you get to decide that. I think you get to decide which one that is. Now, because of how you perceive it. If you perceive it as a temptation, it is a temptation. If you perceive it as an opportunity for improvement, it's an opportunity for improvement. And it is interesting to me that, let me say it this way. I firmly believe that Satan tempts you, that he, the accuser, is actively conspiring against your good because he wants you, he does not want you to go home. He does not want you to be with God. He wants to separate you from that. And we talked in episode 236, whatever that was, the one about sin and death and suffering, that suffering, there's a couple of things that are always here on earth, and one of them is death. One of them is suffering. And suffering may lead to death. It may lead to sin, but it doesn't have to lead to sin. Suffering will come, death will come. Sin does not have to come. And Satan wants you to sin. He wants you to turn from God. And that's why he tempts you. And God will allow you to be tempted up to what you can sustain. But he will never give you more than you can sustain. And we're going to go through some evidence for that. So Satan tempts us. And you can see that if you look at the book of Job and the Gospels. You can see that Satan tempted Jesus Christ. So God permits temptation to build you up, to train you, but he will never give you more than you can withstand. So we're going to start here with Job. All right, and Job is the story of a guy, and his life's going pretty well. And then Satan starts tempting him, and bad things happen. And Job stands firm, even though his friends around him are telling him to concede, to turn his back on God and walk away into sin. But he does not do that. So chapter 1 of Job, verses 8 through 12, Satan and the Lord are talking. The Lord is talking to the Satan. All right. The Lord said to the Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil." The Satan answered the Lord and said, "Is it for nothing that Job is God-fearing? Have you not surrounded him and his family and all that he has with your protection? Have you blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock are spread over the land? But now put forth your hand and touch all that he has, and surely he will curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well. All that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on him." So the Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. And then he goes and he starts destroying Job's life to see if he can get him to turn. So Job has a really good life. He gets that taken away. Satan takes that away from him. God allows him to be tested, and Job stands firm. It's difficult. He goes through a lot of temptation from his friends to turn his back on God. And we talked about sin and suffering in 236, and noted that sin is the turning away, is the going off your aim and deciding that you are not going to do what you were designed to do, which is to try to get back home to God. And the temptation can cause you to do that, but it doesn't have to. Okay, so the Satan does that to Job in chapter 1 of Job, and all the way through it gets beat up pretty bad. Jesus goes through that in all the synoptic gospels. He goes through that with the temptation at the after 40 days of fasting. So Luke, we'll do Luke's chapter 4 verses 1 through 13. Filled with the Holy Spirit, Jesus returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the desert for 40 days to be tempted by the devil. Okay? He's not tempted by God, he's tempted by the devil. He ate nothing during those days, and when they were over, he was hungry. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread." Jesus answered him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." Then he took him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a single instant. And the devil said to him, "I shall give to you all this power and their glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I may give it to whomever I wish. All this will be yours if you worship me." And Jesus said to him in reply, "It is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve." And then he led him to Jerusalem and made him stand on the parapet of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you. And with their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone." And Jesus said to him in reply, "It also says, you should not put the Lord your God to the test." When the devil had finished every temptation, he departed from him for a time. So there are 3 temptations that Jesus goes through here. The first is the turn the stones into bread. And Jesus is very hungry, and that's an appeal. All these temptations appeal to different components of who you are as a human being. The bread one, turn the stones into bread, is an appeal to the flesh, to the desires of the flesh, certainly to eat. But you will notice you have temptations. Satan, the devil, tempts you with things that appear good to the flesh. That whether it's food, whether it's gluttony, whether it's lust, there are things out there that appeal to your sense of trying to satiate your bodily desires. It could be a car that's really fast. It could be a girl that's really fast. It could be that some of those cinnamon rolls that bake really fast. Those things are there are temptations of the flesh. And Jesus undergoes them, and he quotes Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3. Chapter 8, verse 3, "He therefore let you be afflicted with hunger, and then fed you with manna, of food unknown to you and your ancestors, so you might know that it is not by bread alone that people live, but by all that comes forth from the mouth of the Lord." All right, so that's Jesus's rebuttal to the flesh temptation. The second one, the kingdoms. The devil says, "Hey, I'll give you all these kingdoms, and look at you'll have all this power." And isn't power wonderful? Isn't that a wonderful thing? And Jesus quotes Deuteronomy again, and he quotes chapter 6, verse 13, and he says, "The Lord your God shall you fear, and you shall serve him." Right? And he said, "I will not bow down, and I will not worship Satan, even if I get the power." And people love power. I tell you, if they can't have, people get money so they can get power, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But people love that, and Satan tempted Jesus with all earthly power. Now, that's kind of a funny thing. It's Satan says that he's been given all the power on this planet. I mean, this is his world, right? We are living in, we are behind enemy lines here, and Satan tries to get us. We are being, C.S. Lewis says, we are a guerrilla army behind enemy lines, and we're fighting this battle, trying to get back home. We are in the wrong place, and that is one reason we have all this suffering. Is things are not aligned here. This world it's a broken world. It's a fallen world, and it doesn't mean that there aren't beautiful flowers and there aren't wonderful birds that sing, and we can make music and beautiful cathedrals, and there's all sorts of wonderful things that we can do here. But this is a broken world. This world is broken. It's like a car with a cylinder that doesn't fire right. It's like a gear without a tooth in it. It's like a top that wobbles. It doesn't work right. And that causes problems for us because we're supposed to be where? We're supposed to be in the walled garden. We're supposed to be in the paradise, and we're supposed to be there tending the garden and walking in the cool of the evening with God. So being here is we are not in the right place. That's a consequence of the fall. It's a consequence of the fall. It was not a punishment. It was, look, this is where you're going to have to be. You got to be there until we can get you back home. So the second temptation was power. That was the earthly power, and then the third one was the temptation that hey, toss yourself off the top of the tower and make God catch you, because the psalmist says that he will send the angels to catch you lest you dash your foot against a stone. Right. So Jesus quotes Deuteronomy again in chapter 6, verse 16. He says, "You shall not put the Lord your God to the test, as you did at Massah." So the devil appeals to his fleshly desire. The devil appeals to man's desire for power. And the devil appeals to man's desire to make God do his own bidding. Right? So if you can jump off the tower and make God catch you, who is now in charge? Right? And that is a thing, if you have little kids that run all over you, if they're running the show, that's not a good thing, right? And God knows it's not good for you to try to run the show because you don't know what you're doing. Last I checked, I know I certainly am not, and I think you are not as well. You are not omnipresent. You are not omnipotent, and you don't have the skill set to be the grand CEO of the created universe, the created and uncreated universe. So don't try to make God do your bidding. It is best for you to concede to him. Okay. So Satan tempts both Job and Jesus in the Bible. And Satan tempts you otherwise. When I was a kid, we went to one of the big amusement parks outside of Chicago when I was, should have had to been, I don't know, 13 or 12. And this is very vivid for me. This is the kind of thing I remember. We were walking around because you go to the different rides and stuff, and you go to the fun house and you play skee ball or whatever it is. And I still remember this, man. I saw a kid reach into his pocket and pull something out. And as he pulled his hand out, a $20 bill slipped out of his pocket and fell to the sidewalk. I remember this. I remember this happening. And I saw that $20 bill, and I was, I don't know, 10, 15 feet behind this kid. And I walked up to and I took the money. Okay? I took the money. I put my foot on the $20 bill so nobody could see it. And then I waited a little bit, and then I reached out and I picked it up. And I don't remember if I spent that $20 bill on a hat or a t-shirt or a slushie or whatever the hell it was. I took the money. I was tempted, and I failed. I failed the test. And that was a temptation for me. And it wasn't like we were poor kids. I just never had any money. I mean, I didn't, at 13, you don't have a job. You don't have any, where were we? We were at an amusement park. I had no need for money. I already was in the park. Why did I need money? But, it's a temptation. It's a temptation. I succumbed. And these things sit out there in front of you. And just last week, I was at a gas station, and I was walking in the front door to go to the Slurpee machine or whatever it was. I saw on the floor a debit card just lying there on the floor. And my mind flipped back. I mean, it's amazing. It's been 45 years. It's been 45 years at least. And my mind flipped back to being at the amusement park and seeing the $20 bill on the ground. And I picked up the debit card and I bought everybody in the store a drink. No, I didn't do that. I took the card up to, I mean, what do you do? You look around, see if anybody's looking for a debit card. And I don't know. So I took it to the guy at the front and I said, I found the debit card over there by the slot machine. And I said, if somebody come in and look for it, here it is. I don't, what are my other choices? I guess I could have shredded it so that nobody got it. I could have done that. But it just seemed like it would be a better thing to turn it into them in case the lady comes in, because it's a pain in the neck to get a new debit card. So I was tempted again, and I think I passed this time, unless there was something else I was supposed to do with that. If you are not being tempted, if you do not note that you are being tempted, then Satan already has you. Then there's no need to get you. It may feel like you're doing great, but look very carefully at what you're doing and see if there are not things that, through which you are being tempted. And if you've just come out of Lent, like we have, it is very interesting when you come out that now that you have free reign to do the things that you prohibited yourself from doing last time, do you really want to do those things now? That's a thing. I love my ice cream, but I went for whatever that was, 40 days without my ice creams, and it's a new perspective. I'll say that it's a new perspective. After 60 years, it's a new perspective. So if you are being taunted or tempted, if you're being tempted, good. Don't succumb. And if you don't think you're being tempted, well, don't taunt the tempter. Okay, avoid the occasion to sin. Right, because the temptation will get you to sin and will get you to turn away, and then you will lose your aim. And then in that case, your suffering has led to sin, and that's a bad thing. So Satan does the tempting, and I think my guess is it's actually very active. I think that there are. I don't know how it works. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a little devil sitting on your shoulder telling you to do things. I don't know if somebody's up, if we're like puppets with marionettes. I don't know what the model looks like, but from this side, we're being tempted. All right, it's a temptation, and God allows the temptation, but provides you what you need. And there's evidence for this, all right, for you getting what you need. And the biggest one is from Philippians. Paul says in chapter 4, verse 13, I have strength for everything through him who empowers me. Some people quote that as, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. You have what you need. You have what you need. The question is, they say the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Actually, I think the flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak. You have what you need. You just have to, you need some fortitude. Okay. Fortitude. What is fortitude? I looked this one up. Okay. We'll dig this out of the catechism again, because that is a good book for that. Chapter, whatever this is, section 3, part 3, section 1, chapter 1. Okay. Part 3 is life in Christ. Section 1 is man's vocation, life in the Spirit. Chapter 1 is the dignity of the human person. Article 7 in there is called the virtues, and Article 7 of chapter 1 of section 1 of part 3 is called the human virtues. And paragraph 1808 is about fortitude. Fortitude is the moral virtue that ensures firmness in difficulties and constancy in the pursuit of the good. It strengthens the resolve to resist temptations and to overcome obstacles in the moral life. The virtue of fortitude enables one to conquer fear, even fear of death, and to face trials and persecutions. It disposes one even to renounce and sacrifice his life in defense of a just cause. Quote, the Lord is my strength and my song, close quote. That's from Psalms 118. And quote, in the world you have tribulations, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world, close quote. That is from John chapter 16. So you have fortitude. It is a virtue. It's one of the it's one of the human virtues, and pray for improvements of fortitude. That it's a gift that you have, and you should use that to help you avoid temptation that comes oftentimes disguised in suffering. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. No trial has come to you but what is human. God is faithful and will not let you be tried beyond your strength. But with the trial, he will also provide you a way out so that you may be able to bear it. All right, that's 1 Corinthians. You will have a way out. He will give you what you need. There's nothing beyond your strength. There's nothing there that you cannot do. So, right, I can do all things in him who in Christ who strengthens me. And the book of James is very interesting on this thing. There's a section called temptation in the book of James. And remember, temptation can be disguised as suffering. That's the whole point here. Chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man who perseveres in temptation, for when he has been proved, he will receive the crown of life that he promised to those who love him. No one experiencing temptation should say, I am being tempted by God. For God is not subject to temptation to evil, and he himself tempts no one. God does not tempt, okay? Satan tempts. God allows what you can endure. Each person, verse 14, rather, each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire conceives and brings forth sin. And when sin reaches maturity, it gives birth to death. Now, so think about that, okay? Suffering disguises temptation. And that temptation gives you desire. You get lured out. You want to be removed. That suffering you want removed, that gives you desire. But the desire is often pointed away from where you should be going, and that leads to sin. You do something in your suffering to alleviate the suffering, which actually brings forth sin, which is turning away from God. And sin reaches maturity. It gives birth to death because that's a consequence of turning away from God. So I think, in summary, okay, about suffering, I don't think it's a punishment. I can't get my head around it being a punishment. And I mean, I'll be willing to have discussions. If you'd like, give me a call. We'll talk it out. I don't think it's a punishment. I think it's either a consequence of a natural thing that's going on in the world. Okay, it's a consequence of an action that somebody did or that you did. It's mostly a consequence of being alive on Earth, which is a broken world, a car that runs on a bad cylinder with a flat tire and gears with missing teeth. Okay, it's a consequence of living in this world. Okay, but it's also partly temptation. The suffering is temptation. You are the battleground. You are the battleground. You have the tools you need. You've been provided them. You have the weaponry. The question is, can you use it? And you need to keep James in mind that God does not tempt you. Satan does. Each person is tempted when lured and enticed by his own desire. And desire conceives and brings forth sin. And when sin reaches maturity, it gives birth to death. So Satan uses your suffering against you. He uses your suffering against you and tries to get you to despair and turn away. So that's what I think about suffering now. I guess that's the conclusion of a couple days walks, and hopefully that will get you, I don't know, through the rest of the springtime and into summer, and give you something to think about when things aren't going quite well for you. That you have all you need, and I encourage you to dig down deep, get that fortitude, and fight on, because suffering is always there. Death will be there, but you can avoid sin. So in the meantime, seek the good, live virtuously and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.
It's going to be a great day.